Welcome back to a mental health break with Vincent A. Lanci. I'm excited to launch another episode for you all. I'm Vincent Lanci, speaker and author of the book Left for Dead, A Story of Redemption. When I was 21 years old, I was the victim of a hit-and-run accident while walking home from a friend's birthday. After coming out of a coma and suffering from a traumatic brain injury, or as you may know of as a TBI, I soon realized that it was time to put my mental health on a very, very high pedestal. This life-changing and transformative experience has led me to create a podcast that is all things mental health. Would it benefit you to hear from mental health professionals and influencers? Would it also add value to your life to hear real-life and authentic stories from people talking about their mental health, the issues they face, and how they actively combat them? If you answered yes to any of those questions, you came to the right place. I want to start by congratulating you for making your mental health a priority. If you missed the last episode, be sure to download it after you tune in today. Today's guest is from a good friend of ours, Debbie, who introduced us, and she thought she'd be a great fit for my other podcast series, What It's Really Like to Be an Entrepreneur. As it turns out, she is an amazing fit for me to make a difference with on this podcast series too. Allow me to introduce my new friend, Supna Doshi. Hey, Supna, how are you?
Hey, Vincent. Good to see you.
Thanks for coming on the show again. Can you please preview a bit of your story, and before we dive in, let the listeners familiarize ourselves with them?
Sure, absolutely. So I am a mom of 7-year-old triplets. I feel like mental health comes in kind of a lot of different shapes and sizes. For me, I struggled with severe postpartum depression. And so that is kind of, that was how I was kind of introduced into the mental health arena. I actually don't like the word mental health because I think like there's this really bad stigma associated with it in our community, and it makes me feel kind of like an alien to say that I have mental health issues. I feel like these things are the essence of being human. We have emotions, we're human beings, and we all have them. So when I had the severe postpartum depression, the doctor gave me two choices. One was medication, and the other one was figure it out yourself. And I thought those were two really terrible choices, but I took the figure it out yourself method and started digging in and doing the work. So,
yeah, well, thank you for that. I think connecting with people and sharing our stories is, like you said, it's the essence of how it's going to help people. Something I do on each episode is I share a mental health story of someone who is famous or in the limelight because I want to let you, the listeners, know that you are not alone. I want you to understand that even though someone looks like they are healthy from the outside, they may not be on the inside too. Today, I will introduce the story of Miley Cyrus. I felt that some of the details in this story can resonate with a lot of you listening in, and it is very common. When she and Liam Hemsworth broke off their engagement, she was finally able to learn what it's like to be alone without intense anxiety. She talks about how when she was on Disney or with Liam, she felt extreme anxiety on the possible scenario of Disney or Liam not being by her side anymore. She says that she is now free from both things. She actually felt fine. She added that she was so much stronger without both of those things that she once thought she would have died if she didn't have a boyfriend or was with Disney. She also battled depression in the past, describing a time where she locked herself in her room and had to have her dad break down her door. Hey, what'd you take away from that story and all of the public statements she's made about her mental health?
Yeah, I mean, I think that for me, the biggest takeaways are that, we are responsible for ourselves. There's a lot of work involved in recognizing, understanding, and processing our own emotions, the way we think. And so I was, we all walk a path. And I'm proud of her for kind of taking responsibility and figuring out the tools that work for her.
Absolutely. I mean, I only knew of her when my sister had watched her younger when she was on Disney Channel, and now to see celebrities finally speaking about their issues, I think it's going to help a lot of people because they have so many fans.
Absolutely.
So now let's get into the main event. On each episode, my guest and I go over a series of 6 questions. My goal is to feature many valuable guests in this podcast, including people talking about their mental health, doctors, and influencers to deliver as much value as possible. You ready to go?
I'm ready.
Great. Many people would agree that the more common or talked about types of mental illnesses are anxiety disorders, mood disorders, and schizophrenia disorders. What areas do you come across or hear about the most?
Yeah, for me, I mean, the areas that have come across my path the most are the depression, the anxiety, and suicidal thoughts. Um, for me, in my experience, I've noticed patterns when it comes to transition. So when I talked about my postpartum transition, it was a postpartum depression. It was a transition from not being a parent to being a parent. I also have been working with my partner, Adam, who's a Marine Corps veteran for the last 2 years, and really learning about the anxiety, depression, and suicide that comes from transition out of the military.
Yeah, that's some definitely great perspective. When did you first decide that you would start dedicating a career possibly to something related to mental health? When did you realize it was the right time for you?
When I was sitting on the floor crying with 3 babies, that was really, being told that, your choices are medication and you can't take care of 3 kids, or you have to figure it out yourself. In a first world country, those are not good options. And so, although my background is all in social emotional learning, I really realized that I had to advocate for destigmatizing something that is the essence of being a human being. We cannot be made to feel guilty or alien for having emotions.
Absolutely. Now, when you talk about the career, get our listeners involved exactly what you're working on.
Sure. So, my corporate experience was all in human resources and talent acquisition. I did a lot of work in emotional intelligence training. And what I found not only on the corporate side was that ROIs were increasing, but then the employees were coming to me and saying, wow, I have a better relationship with my spouse. I can communicate better with my children. My anxiety has gone down considerably. And I realized that really learning those tools and then applying it across all communities. Then when I had the postpartum depression, I thought, if I'm not going to take medication, maybe I should try to apply some of the tools I was teaching to myself, and really found how powerful they were.
Absolutely. That's incredible. What advice can you give to our listeners today? What you can maybe describe as would be a potential early sign that someone may be developing a mental illness?
Yeah, so just for clarification, I'm not a doctor. I have no medical experience. I just have personal experience and have spent, years talking to people and doing research. So these are not medically based. These are personal
Absolutely.
experience
Absolutely.
based.
Yes.
So really interesting, I would say holding your breath. When you find that in moments of extreme happiness or extreme sadness, or during moments of the day that you start to hold your breath, that actually holding your breath creates anxiety and depression, that energy within you. And because you're not breathing it out, you're not releasing it. Another one is reacting without thinking. So one of the pillars of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. So really knowing how you're feeling, but then also self-regulation, not reacting immediately to your emotions and being able to separate the two. So if you're reacting without the thought, and if you're just kind of doing that instinctively and immediately, so that's the second one. And then diminishing self-care. So if you're not taking care of yourself, and that's as simple as, I don't feel like taking a shower, all the way to, not going to see your doctor, not doing the things that bring you joy, those types of things.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing all those. When I have people come on the show to explain what they're going through, those real life examples I know can go a long way for people. With my traumatic brain injury, I spoke about it on an earlier episode, where something that could have helped me so much more than just hearing it from doctors and things is people explaining to me what they were going through, because then I would have been more prepared. So that's definitely great advice. So now let's focus on some things to improve this mental health for people listening in. If we could pick 3, and just 3 things, what would you say the 3 most important things for you maybe were to create a more positive mental health space that you started doing on a daily or short-term basis?
Yeah, the 3 most powerful tools for me was 1, a daily gratitude practice.
Yes.
That in itself will change your life. So a daily written gratitude practice. Sit down and do it, even if you don't think you have anything to be grateful for. Just do it. Just write. Breathing breaks, which sounds simple, but they're really hard to do. To sit down and consciously breathe for 30 seconds was huge for me. And the third biggest tool that helped me was to stop multitasking. I only do focused time now. So when I'm doing something, that's all I'm doing.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
remember
multitask anymore.
she was a guest on my entrepreneur podcast, as I mentioned earlier, and that was one of my key takeaways, where she stopped focusing so much on the long term. She just started just looking at what's right in front of her. Simply put,
Yeah, those are definitely the three that have had the most impact in the short amount of time for me.
well, thank you for sharing. And now let's shift a little bit more towards long term. A lot of things aren't overnight. We describe that as people that think they take, medicine, and it's going to be an immediate thing, when it may take 3 weeks, 6 weeks for their body to get used to it. Maybe not medically speaking, but what are some longer term commitments that you could recommend for people to help create a healthier mindset?
So this one people have probably heard a lot, self-care. What I would say is it has a really bad rap in our society. Self-care has a lot of stigma associated with it, which is very ironic to me. But by self-care, I don't mean go get a massage, don't go, get a pedicure and stuff, although those are all pieces of self-care.
Yeah.
But I mean kind of really looking at yourself and what you need to do to take care of yourself. Do the things that you love, that fill you with joy, and do more of them more often. And that, to me, is the essence of self-care. And the second one is to integrate volunteering as a core part of your week. I have found that, when we focus on ourselves, we focus on ourselves. And when we're able to shift our perspective to helping others, from a human perspective, that's what community is. We are designed to be in communities. And so the more we spend that time helping others, the more we can really shift our mental health.
I love it. Volunteering is one of my favorite things to do. And people that don't actively volunteer, the feeling of giving back or paying it forward is something better that you can't buy. That feeling I enjoy, especially when I'm up in New York. When my parents were in there, a couple of towns away, at the food pantries, you pack the food, the lunches, the dinners for the people in the community.
Yeah.
Don't have that. And we did during the holidays this past year. We had like 750 meals
Wow.
packed one time. It was a great, great event.
It's so amazing. And, even actually the feeling that you get from giving back is amazing. I also get a lot from the conversations that I have with the people that I'm there to help. I find that I leave having gotten far more help that they gave me than I could have possibly given to them.
Absolutely. Where do you tend to volunteer out here in Tampa? What's your favorite organization to team up with?
There are a number of food banks. There are a number of homeless shelters. I don't dedicate myself to one. I really just go with what I feel like doing that week.
Yeah, awesome. So let's talk on something really, really cool, because it helps everybody listening in familiarize themselves with you, the guest today. What are some ways you want to plan on raising some awareness for mental health in the future?
Well, thank you for that question. So my company, Alinea, which means a new way of thinking, is dedicated to collaborating with and telling the stories of those transparent and authentic organizations that are making an impact on the depression, anxiety, and suicide rates in any community across the globe. So we work with companies that are dedicated to kids. We work with companies that are dedicated to the military community. Any company that or organization that's making an impact on mental health in any community is really, we're there to tell their story.
Absolutely. Well, I'm excited to see how that all rolls out and see the beginning of that. But thank you so much for coming on today. I know our listeners are going to see so much value in your episode today. I really appreciate how you spoke from the heart, and you're going to relate to a lot of people, a lot of moms out there. Thank you so much for everything. I'm excited for all of our listeners to check out your new company, and that rolls out. But as you know from the other series, we do the last word. I want to let our listeners get to know you a little bit more. So is there something you want to share with everybody listening on that we didn't touch on today?
I'd love to share that, just to reiterate that we are responsible for ourselves. There are many tools out there if you're struggling with depression, anxiety, suicidal ideations. There are many tools out there that exist. Art therapy is one that I recommend highly. It's accelerated resolution therapy. I've heard testimonies where it works in as little as one treatment. IREST, which is integrative restoration, breath work, and my favorite author is Michael Singer. And anything, any audio podcasts, video podcasts, or any of his books are amazing.
Awesome. Can you please go ahead and share your social media, your website, or any ways for our listeners to follow your endeavors or request your services?
Absolutely. Our website is alineaproduction.com. That's ALINEA production.com. And we are at Alinea Production on Facebook.
Great. At alineaproduction.com on Facebook. alineaproduction.com is their website. Be sure to check all that out. And be sure to check out the show on Instagram and Facebook at A Mental Health Break, and on Twitter at Podcasts by Lanci. I'm at Vincent A. Lanci on all social media and YouTube, and my website is vincentalanci.com. Be sure to check out my book, Left for Dead, A Story of Redemption, on Amazon now, but be sure to DM me or email me. I want to hear what you think. If you like today's episode, please continue listening and rate A Mental Health Break with Vincent A. Lanci 5 stars. I work hard to find value delivering stories and guests for you on each episode. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you all in the next episode of A Mental Health Break with Vincent A. Lanci.